That's right, we're finally going to talk about the difficult truth that everyone's been dancing around like they're Ballora, but I'm not going to be a ballerina for you. I'm going to shed light for you today on the fact, the hard truth, that Count Strahd von Zarovich is fantasy AU William Afton, or that William Afton is modern AU Count Strahd von Zarovich. Either way, really. Hey, I'm the wereraven, or Locke, they, he, and I shall be guiding you through the mist today to discuss the parallels between Count Strahd von Zarovich and William Afton. I suggest that you do not wander off, as I will not be held responsible for any children that get turned into meat pies or shoved into animatronic suits. I can only protect you so much from your own bad decisions, so just stay with me and everything's gonna be just fine. Let's go. I guess we gotta start with getting us all on the same page. If you're on this channel, you are likely familiar with Curse of Strahd, but just in case, let's go over what that entails exactly. Curse of Strahd is a D&D 5e module that tells the gothic horror tale of a vampiric overlord's tyranny and endless pursuit of his lost love, and or someone who could truly be his equal or an heir. It's the incel moderator looking for his Discord kitten campaign, a tale as old as time. This campaign takes place in the isolated demi-plane of dread called Barovia, where the player characters are lured into and trapped by the mist to endure a cat-and-mouse game with the undead count. Usually the whole point is to gather enough knowledge in certain items as predetermined by Taroko reading in order to defeat the Devil Strahd so that Barovia may finally be free and the party may finally return to their homes. I wouldn't know. The real Curse of Strahd is parties falling apart around level 6 due to either above table issues or scheduling problems. Barovia stays in the darkness that blossom in Strahd's heart due to the expectations set by his father to be nothing more than a weapon. This Ravenloft campaign contains many beloved NPCs and story beats that have captured a whole fan space on the internet and was a popular setting throughout many editions of D&D in the past. Who doesn't love a spooky vampire campaign after all? Whereas, on the other hand, Five Nights at Freddy's is a completely different realm of horror. This is another IP that I would be surprised if you weren't familiar with, but I'm going to set the foundation of pillowy pizza dough for you anyway. FNAF is an indie mascot horror video game series that has very much branched out beyond the digital landscape, but let's just stay there for both my and your sanity today. Five Nights at Freddy's started off as a video game in which you needed to survive, what do you know, 5 nights working the night shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Except that was a lie. There were 7 nights to endure. What the f***? Anyway, as the new security guard, it doesn't take long to realize that the animatronics get a little quirky at night, and by quirky, I mean they try to kill you by shoving you into an animatronic suit. They're modest killer robots. Can't have a naked endoskeleton sitting in the security office. Wires out? Come on, have some decorum. As you go through this series of games, you begin to figure out, and by that I mean game theory told you, the alarming lore of Fazbear Entertainment. The animatronics come to life at night because they are haunted by the spirits of the children whose corpses were shoved into them by a serial killer. That serial killer, of course, being the aforementioned Purple Guy, or William Afton, founder of the company. The lore gets extremely convoluted from here, and I am not a FNAF theorist, please don't make me one. So outside of these parameters, I will only be going over the lore that is relevant to the hard truth I am only delaying by making silly jokes in my summaries. There are 7 reasons I have compiled to show you how Strahd and William Afton are one and the same. Now stay focused so we can survive all of these 7 points and pray to Ezra that whatever looms in the mist doesn't break in before it's quit time. Point number 7. They both have catchphrases. The most obvious and most simple one. Strahd will take any opportunity to remind his subjects, or really anyone that will listen for the couple of seconds it takes to say this phrase, I am the ancient, I am the land. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a very powerful line. The lore and the implications drip off those words like blood down a very unlucky Barovian's eviscerated throat. It tells us exactly what he is, immortal, undeath, vampire, without ever needing to directly state it. It implies that Barovia and he are one. Nowhere is safe from him if he is literally everywhere. Delicious diction, right for a gothic horror story. And William Afton admittedly does not say his as often as one may have Strahd say his catchphrase. I think Afton says his motto a handful of times. Don't put my head in Fredbear's mouth if I'm wrong, FNAF fans. I like my frontal lobe intact, please. Don't do it. But of course, I am referring to the childhood classic to all of Gen Z, the infamous "I always come back." This line is way more simple in nature, but implies just as much about the lore of its respective world. Afton always comes back. Whether that is in haunting the Spring Bonnie suit he got spring locked inside of, now known as Springtrap, or as a computer virus that people are what I once thought was oddly devoted to, but given certain technological loyalties we see today, rather accurate, scarily so, known as Glitchtrap. This point was short and sweet, so let's fly to our next one already. Point number 6. They enjoy causing agony. Strahd is bored. He is so bored, man. Isn't that messed up? One of his biggest motivations for messing with the party can literally just be that he is bored. That's pure evil, man. That's beautiful. That's horrific. But of course, that does mean that he finds other people's agony entertaining. And that's the whole engorged mosquito fruit snack of that point. That's disgusting. Why did I say that? Strahd is an active BBEG, as we all probably know. He loves to toy with the party, and he will poke at holes in the player characters' relationships, stirring drama to get them to portray one another in dramatic tragedy. He sees Barovians as poor, uneducated, and beneath him, caring not for their suffering as long as the taxes are still paid, the respect he is due is still given, and there is blood to be sucked. Others' suffering fills him with glee, and in some cases might be said to help him feel less alone in his own torment. He's really one of those, if I can't be happy, no one can kind of guys. And Afton? Oh, Afton. Dude, I do not want to touch this part of FNAF lore almost as much as I don't want to touch the validity of Phasgoo, but here we are, I guess. Purple Guy causes agony in the children that he kills on purpose because agony is a resource? An element? Gods, this is truly where FNAF lore runs away from me, and I just nod my head and go, okay, MatPat. May he thrive in his governmental pursuits. Agony is an element that infuses the metal of the animatronics that the kids haunt, and when the metal is melted down, it becomes remnant, I believe, which then can be used to make better animatronics to terrorize and horrifically murder more children to create more agony, and so on and so forth. A vicious cycle which I think is meant to lead to Afton achieving immortality? Or bring his child back that died? Probably. Someone can correct me, kindly, in the comments so that I can move right along to my next point. Point number 5, their disguises. Here's a bit more of a fun one. Both of these terrible men have disguises they can utilize to achieve their incorrigible deeds. Strahd has one set alter ego, one Vasily von Holtz, as given to us in the novel I, Strahd, The Memoirs of a Vampire by P.N. Elrod, and is referenced a couple times in the Curse of Strahd 5e module. There are many ways to utilize the Vasily disguise, but the most popular ones I'm currently aware of include as a Wallachian noble or a royal messenger for the Count. Vasily, being a handsome human and usually helpful but not suspiciously so by Barovian standards, can gain the trust of those around him much easier than Strahd can when he looks like himself. This can lead to all sorts of manipulations and agony, especially if a player character were to fall in love with him, so to speak. And then on a much less romantic note, Afton has his own disguise as well, that of the Spring Bonnie suit. The Spring Bonnie suit was a yellow rabbit springlock suit from back in the day that Afton donned to easily lure children into the back room of a pizzeria and then snuff the light out of their innocent eyes. Using the children's beloved anthropomorphic rabbit friend to trick them into leaving safe and crowded areas was absolutely sinister behavior. Those poor kids didn't even understand the concept of stranger danger, especially considering the years those games took place in. They felt so safe and happy, and Afton took complete advantage of that. Strahd and Afton's disguises go hand in hand with point number 4, so let's latch on to that as quick as Barovians would buy up a dream pastry sale. Point number 4, they are both liars with a capital L. I don't know why I started throwing up the fingers for each point now, but we're gonna stick with this. I've started it, I can't stop now. Both Strahd and Afton are liars with a big ol' L, and despite that fact, these losers stay winning. Strahd deceives the player characters in many ways right from the beginning. Many of the as-written plot hooks are manipulations of the party's goodwill to get them into Barovia for him to toy with. And that's just the beginning. Vampires are cunning and charming, and Strahd is no exception to that fact. He was a royal in life, and that persists in his blood to this day. His charisma has only been enhanced by that dark vampiric charm. He will offer power or knowledge-hungry characters the promises of a lifetime to work underneath him, extending the strengths he has in undeath and never quite following through on those promises. Mansplain, manipulate, manslaughter are the 3 not-so-secret powers of Strahd von Zarovich, but his supernatural abilities may make you second-guess that anyway. I mean, just think about how he interacts with Irina Koliana. He quite literally wants to kill her so that she will be his undead bride, because he cannot accept the fact that her soul chose another lifetimes ago, and he will use whatever words or charms to do so. Whether that is magically altering her memories to hide that he is feeding off of her, or to give her fonder thoughts of their encounters, masquerading as Vasily to earn her affections, or directly deceiving her about their past life together, claiming that she loved him and was taken from him just before they were happily wedded. Strahd is the king of gaslighting, but many can forgive that sort of thing when it comes to being the object of an ancient's obsession. Not relatable content to me, but I know that some people can forgive that. In the FNAF universe, William Afton is just as much of a manipulator. He promises children fun and joy, or to a little girl, her beloved dog, most often while wearing the Spring Bonnie suit. Each lie resulting in the death of a young innocent. His deceit continues on to any adult we meet throughout the games, considering he is never caught for his crimes. The amount of grifting abilities to pull off innocent in the face of restaurant after restaurant closing due to tragedies that took place within their walls is truly astounding. Once again, we meet a powerhouse of the mansplain, manipulate, manslaughter community. Oh, woo. We can use Afton's relationship with his living... Okay, maybe not that necessarily. His oldest son, Michael, who many FNAF theorists believe we play as throughout the early games. There is a very likely chance that at one point William manipulated Michael's grief over killing his own brother to help further his research, or what is better known as mass children death. Michael may have cleaned up after his father for years, only finally realizing the truth when discovering his sister Elizabeth has gone on to possess Circus Baby and left to rust away beneath the Afton house and sister location. He literally finds the location of his dead sister, and it's like a wake-up call that leads us into the events of FNAF 6. Dude, Michael literally dies to see the truth of the monster that is his father, whose intentions may have come off as trying to put the youngest child together, the crying child, but was probably never actually to desperately do that sort of thing. I think he was too evil for that. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Point number 3. They both have cults devoted to them. What's an evil man with narcissistic tendencies without brainwashed followers, really? Our beloved vampire, of course, is likely the object of worship for many cults within Barovia. The 2 that we're going to talk about today, though, however, are the cult in the Death House and the Druids of Yesterhill. Before the Death House became the Death House, Gustav and Elizabeth Durst were very into the dark arts and the potential to summon malevolent, otherworldly forces. However, the cult did nothing but fail to achieve anything but sadism. When Strahd appeared to them the first time, they viewed him as like a messiah, and they were very devoted to trying to impress him He, of course, found them immensely boring, which, as usual when a man is unattainable, drove the cultists crazy trying to gain his favor. This resulted in them killing an adventuring party of Strahd's playthings and earning their messiah's unholy wrath. The Yesterhill Druids, on the other hand, have yet to meet such a cruel fate, and worship Strahd as the lord of the land and master of the weather. His little catchphrase declaring that he is indeed the land really lends a branch to the circle of Druids' power. If he is indeed the very land around them, naturally they're going to venerate him, and Strahd has complete control over the weather. That's why we never see the sun in Barovia. I mean, to the Druid's credit, he very well may be the most powerful entity of nature a Druid could serve. Again, there's plenty more cults that are devoted to Strahd, but I gotta give the purple guy some time to shine as well during this point. Afton has a cult of his own, the cult of Glitchtrap. Throughout Help Wanted, we learned that there's a virus within a VR video game that Fazbear Entertainment developed as a PR move, which was wild and kind of meta in a way. That virus looked like a purple rabbit that we call Glitchtrap and infects or possesses people who play the game, driving them to end their own lives or do his bidding. We see this later on in Vanessa from Security Breach. She is most certainly influenced by Glitchtrap and can be freed in one of the endings. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure how this Glitchtrap virus came to be, if there even is a generally accepted theory about it, or even what the purpose of it is, other than Afton's work continuing on after he was burned in FNAF 6. But regardless, there is a cult. And that is enough of a parallel for me, so let's move on. Point number 2, green with envy. Alright, we're getting into one of the big ones now. The jealousy of it all. Now, I will admit that I think Strahd has a much deeper root of jealousy in his heart, considering that sin is what brings about the entire story. You know, the Curse of Strahd. Whereas we more speculate that there was jealousy in Afton's heart. So take that for what you will, as I talk for way too long about this emerald gem. So Strahd. Lovely Strahd. If only you were not so confined by the expectations of your father, maybe you could have been a good older brother. So Strahd was quite literally destroyed by envy of his youngest brother, Sergei. In either the customs of the royal von Zarovich family, or maybe it was more the customs of their ancestral land, it's never quite ever clarified as far as I'm currently aware. There are certain roles and responsibility von Zaroviches must fill based on their birth order. The firstborn is expected to go into the military, the secondborn will be responsible for matters of the state, and the thirdborn will dedicate themselves to the family's deity. If there are more roles going further down the line, like fourthborn and so forth, and I don't know them. PN Elrod did not tell me. Extremely rude of her, if you ask me. We know about these 3 roles, however, because we get the 3 von Zarovich siblings, the children of King Barov and Queen Ravenovia, Strahd, Sturm, and of course Sergei. We are going to be ignoring Sturm today, much like the entire fan space as a whole. Forget about him. He's got paperwork, it's extremely boring, and not worth your time. Strahd left home at an extremely young age to join the military and spent all of his youth learning the art of war, rising through the ranks, and conquering the von Zarovich's enemies. All in the name of tradition and attempting to live up to his father's expectations. He never really got to live outside of that, never got to experience what it was like to not be a sharpened weapon. This is why he had no interest in his men's lives or having a family or anything, and why once he settled down in the valley that became Barovia, he grew restless in the calm, and he grew angry and paranoid at death's approach, even though he was middle-aged. Although I suppose during a more medieval-inspired fantasy, being middle-aged is fairly close to death. Whereas Sergei, on the other hand, was at least 20 years his junior. He had a soft and protected life where their mother doted on him as the youngest. He had freedoms that Strahd would never understand and his whole life ahead of him still. Strahd, as the older brother, I do genuinely believe, did try to love Sergei as best as he could, but again, as the older brother, there was always this ever-present resentment that Sergei got a much better life and didn't even realize it enough to appreciate that fact. Seeing the light in Sergei's eyes was a blaring reminder of how long ago Strahd had lost his own to the war machine. And of course, this only got worse when Sergei met Tatiana. Sergei was maybe weeks away from swearing himself to his deity, which is heavily implied to be the Morning Lord, taking on a priesthood as tradition dictates, when, while trying to help the people of the village below Castle Ravenloft, he met the most beautiful and kind woman he had ever known. Sergei was immediately in love with Tatiana, and she was equally as taken by him. Strahd, again, of course, was disgusted by this romance, both out of his own disinterest in the idea, but also because Sergei was breaking away from his role by choosing to marry, something that Strahd was never afforded even the thought to do. Just knowing that would have stung like nothing before. But when Tatiana came to the castle and met Strahd for the first time, that was the final nail in the coffin for any sort of happy ending for this family. Strahd was absolutely infatuated with Tatiana and wanted her for himself. Now, I don't believe Strahd ever fully, truly was in love with her. She was gorgeous, kind, and youthful, a ray of sunshine and fervor in a people he had written off as beneath him. She was everything he wanted in the sense of the youth that he had lost. And all of these things doesn't mean that he actually loved her more what she represented. He attempted to woo her away from Sergei, but she continued to see him as the elder sovereign he was, as Sergei's older brother and her future brother-in-law, because of course she did. Strahd was willing to do anything to have her, to steal her away from Sergei, and that darkness in his heart answered. The eldest von Zarovich made a deal with the dark powers for an escape from death, so that he would no longer age, essentially, and his heart's deepest desire. Perhaps not knowing what that fully entailed. He killed Sergei on the day of the wedding, and drank of his blood, sealing his fate as the world's first vampire. When he went to Tatiana, he tried once again to seduce her while she was wearing her wedding dress still, this time with his newfound vampiric charms, but she still refused him, choosing to end her own life rather than be without her beloved Sergei. No one survived that night in Castle Ravenloft. No one but Richten, anyway. And thus the dark powers whisked Barovia away into the mist, creating the domain of dread we know it as today, and cursing the souls of so many. So many. Without Strahd's envy, we would not have a campaign setting. It is such an integral part of his character that despite his dark suave nature and his royal demeanor, I think it's important to remember his most fatal flaw while portraying him. That violence born of his jealousy should never be forgotten. And Afton, over here in Mascot Horrorland. Again, his jealousy, I'll remind you, is a bit more speculated. William Afton had a business partner in Henry Emily. Afton was much better at the business side of things, whereas Henry was better on the creative side. Henry's characters were more popular than Afton's contributions. We see this most obviously in Springtime Bonnie, the first anthropomorphic character of Afton's own creation, getting scrapped for the more popular Fredbear, who continues on to become Freddy Fazbear, the titular character of the whole video game franchise, the face of Fazbear Entertainment, and, you know, the head of the main cast we think of when we think of Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, the order of the children's deaths is one that many FNAF theorists still debate to this day. I'm going to be using the assumption that Charlotte Emily, also known as Charlie, Henry's daughter, was Afton's first kill. This does make sense as the times we witnessed that murder. It seems more rushed and sloppy, like Afton was on a very not-sober, jealous bender, perhaps. Charlie's death is so unlike all of the others, especially the MCI ones. She was locked outside the pizzeria, she was alone, and she was abandoned. The minigame Midnight Motorist could likely be Purple Guy driving home after this horrendously evil act, despite the sprite being more orange than the purple that we're used to representing Afton throughout the games. There is also every chance that Charlie was also Afton's first victim out of the grief-risen jealousy that Emily still had his daughter, assuming that Afton's daughter Elizabeth was scooped by Circus Baby at this point. But of course, that whole last paragraph could be thrown into the recycling machine, which, holy fuck, why was there lava in the costume factory, the MCM one? Excuse me? Mr. Edwin Murray? Hello? Why was that there? Because we know Chica tells us that she was the first and has seen everything in Ultimate Custom Night, which would lead us to believe that Susie, the child that haunts Chica's suit, must have been Afton's first victim. But regardless of that fact, Afton and Henry had a rift in their relationship that maybe could have started due to some jealousy issues on the former's part. Alright, let's get to our first point, please. What about a drum roll for point number 1? They always come back. Not to have a throwback all the way to point 7, but they both do always come back. Not just because they're both undead in a way, but they seem to ceaselessly persist to return once perceived to have been defeated. Starting with Strahd for the last time in this video, at the end of a Curse of Strahd campaign, after fighting Strahd and parting the mist, that is not the end of our dread vampire lord. No. The dark powers always bring him back to perpetuate the cycle of torment, but also, in my mind, so they can continue to exist. The entities known as the dark powers were all born out of various dark parts of Strahd's past. If he's gone, they're gone. And no one of such unknowable power is just gonna let that go. Thus, they never let Strahd rest. As well as that was part of the deal he made to never meet with death, every undead creature can be brought back into the release of a second passing on, except for Strahd. He must remain. It's the only way that this whole thing works. The 5e module even prompts you to include this in the epilogue, having the party receive a letter or some other form of notice that Strahd has returned years later when they have all but maybe forgotten what they endured to defeat him. I know a lot of tables use this to continue their Curse of Strahd campaigns into higher levels past the recommended level 10, and that can be a lot of fun. And obviously, Strahd never truly being defeated and the curse never truly being able to end for all the poor Barovian souls subjected to it just makes a really good ending for a gothic horror story. To end with William Afton, some of this I did say in the point about his catchphrase since it pertains to this very detail, but he does always come back. When the spirits led by Cassidy, the angry spirit Afton should not have killed, trap him in his own Spring Bonnie suit, resulting in the spring locks activating and killing him, he doesn't stay dead. Afton knew that the agony of his death would fuse with the metal of the suit and he would persist. His vicious nature clinging to life despite the pain and suffering he would have to go through. In FNAF 3, Springtrap survives the fire that burns down that haunted attraction, as indicated by brightening the image on the newspaper at the end of the game. And then we see him again in Scraptrap, who we think is burned in FNAF 6 with all of the other animatronics lured to the location by Michael Afton and Henry Emily, in this powerful last stand just to discover that he still persists in the form of the virus program Glitchtrap and gains his brainwashed Colton help wanted. Or, he was also technically physically there at the end of Security Breach, which I can't sit here and lie to you about understanding why that was. Like, didn't he finally burn in FNAF 6 and get thrown into hell for Ultimate Custom Night? Or since he was found, beneath the Pizzaplex that was built on the original restaurant, he just once again stubborned his way to staying alive? I probably should have watched a theory on that part before writing this, but Who doesn't love a little mystery? Who doesn't love a little non-committal thought stated as facts? The main point is Afton's influence is ever present, no matter what part of the timeline we're in when playing the FNAF games. His grubby hands left their purple marks over everything, and he is too evil and obstinate to stay defeated for long. We wouldn't continue to have new games like Secret of the Mimic without his treacherous ways, and thus we can never really escape him either. And there you have it, folks, 7 parallels between Strahd and Afton. In fact, I think they are so strong you could certainly homebrew a FNAF-inspired area in a Curse of Strahd campaign, or maybe make a FNAF-inspired pocket domain of Dread. Getting Strahd and FNAF is a little different. I don't know who I gotta contact at Steel Wool in WotC to cooperate on this project, but they should get on it. Maybe this would just be fan service for this fan in particular, but this fan will always make demands for what they want to see. I am super curious about what you guys think about all of this. Do you agree with me? Hot people will say yes. Just saying. Did I miss any similarities along the way? Let me know in the comments below. Before I guide you all out of the mist, if you're new here and like Ravenloft content, please subscribe. There are so many more topics to discuss within this current of fog that will be on the way as I am able to collect them and present them to you. Thanks for venturing into the mist with me today, and I will see you next time.